Welcome back to the deep dive. You guys know how much I love digging into the stuff that really makes you think, and today we're diving into a topic that's, frankly, a little bit out there.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we're talking symbols, but
symbols.
not just any symbols, right? We're going deep on the idea that symbols can actually be used to, like, control reality. I know it sounds a little far-fetched, but one of you awesome listeners sent us this YouTube video called How the Secret Elite Controls Reality Using Symbols. Hidden knowledge. It's from a channel called Spiritual Dive, and, well, it makes some pretty wild claims.
Definitely makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Yeah.
I mean, can symbols really be that powerful? Can they shape our beliefs and behaviors, maybe even control societies, like the video suggests?
Well, that's what we're here to explore, right? I mean, think of it. We're surrounded by symbols every day, from the logos on our clothes to the traffic signs on the street to the religious icons we see in places of worship.
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way. I guess we kind of take symbols for granted, don't we?
We do, and this video is all about waking us up to the hidden language of symbols and how they might be influencing us without us even realizing it.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea that symbols are more than just pretty pictures. I mean, the video claims that symbols can evoke emotions, shape beliefs, even control societies. It even goes as far as saying that a secret elite is using symbols to manipulate the masses.
That's where things get a little conspiratorial, right? But even if we set aside the whole secret society angle for a moment, there's no denying that symbols have always been powerful tools to communicate ideas and evoke emotions, sometimes on a subconscious level.
So, where do we even begin to analyze something like that?
Well, to understand the power of symbols, it helps to look back in time. Think about ancient Egypt and the Eye of Horus.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool symbol.
It was more than just a cool design, it was believed to have real power. It symbolized protection, healing, and divine power.
So, it wasn't just a pretty picture, it was a way for people to connect with their beliefs and values.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual beliefs either. Think about how national symbols like flags tap into our sense of belonging and loyalty.
True. Like, I get chills every time I see the American flag waving in the wind.
Right. They represent a shared identity, a common purpose. And that can be a powerful force, especially when it comes to uniting people.
But that same emotional pull can be used to manipulate people too, right? I mean, the video talks about how flags can be used to stir up nationalism or even justify conflict.
Yeah, that's the dark side of symbols, isn't it? They can be used to divide us just as easily as they can unite us.
And it's not just flags either. The video makes this really interesting comparison between flags and corporate logos.
It's a brilliant point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Think about how a simple logo like the Nike swoosh or the Apple can evoke strong feelings of brand loyalty, even desire.
Oh, yeah, totally. But I mean, I'll admit, I'm a sucker for a good logo. I mean, you see that Apple logo and you just know it's going to be a quality product.
We might not even realize how those symbols are influencing our choices and behaviors.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is. And the video takes this idea even further, talking about this all seeing eye being everywhere on our money official documents and how it's a symbol of control and surveillance.
Oh, yeah. That one always freaks me out a little bit. Is that just a conspiracy theory or is there something to it?
It definitely plays on our fears about being watched and controlled by unseen forces, right? I mean, who's behind that eye anyway? But if we step back from the conspiracy angle, we can see how the eye itself has been a powerful symbol for centuries, often associated with knowledge and power.
So it's not the symbol itself that's inherently good or bad, it's how it's being used and the context surrounding it.
Exactly. It's all about interpretation and how we as individuals and as a society choose to use and understand those symbols.
That actually makes me think of something else the video brings up. Pentagram, I always thought of it as a symbol of, harmony, but the video claims it's been linked with the occult and evil.
It's amazing how a symbol's meaning can shift over time and across cultures, right? The pentagram is a perfect example. It's been associated with everything from paganism to Christianity to modern witchcraft.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
But at its core, it often represents the interconnectedness of the elements. Earth, air, fire, water, spirit, that kind of thing.
So who gets to decide what a symbol means? Is it all subjective, or are there some universal meanings we can't escape?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it leads us to a fascinating concept, Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Jung believed that we all share a kind of universal memory bank, a reservoir of symbols and archetypes that are common to all humanity.
So you're saying it's not just our personal experiences that shape our responses to symbols?
Right, it's almost as if certain symbols trigger innate responses within us, drawing on shared human experiences that transcend individual cultures and time periods.
Whoa, that's a mind-blowing thought. Could this be why certain symbols like the circle hold similar meanings across cultures?
Absolutely. The circle representing wholeness infinity, we see it everywhere from Stonehenge to indigenous rituals to modern day logos.
Yeah, you're right. I never really thought about that connection.
It's almost as if these symbols tap into a deeper layer of our being, a layer that resonates with universal truths and experiences. And this is where the power of symbols to shape reality comes in.
Okay, now things are getting really interesting.
Right.
So are you saying that symbols can tap into this collective unconscious and actually influence how we see the world?
The video certainly makes that argument, and I think there's evidence to support it. Think about the impact of architecture in public spaces. Those grand government buildings with their classical columns aren't just about aesthetics, they're designed to evoke authority and power.
You know, you're right. They do kind of make you feel small and insignificant, like you're standing before something much larger than yourself. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it makes sense.
It's a subtle form of symbolic communication, a way of shaping our perceptions without us even realizing it. The video even goes as far as to say that the placement and design of monuments, buildings, even coins are strategically chosen to influence us.
Wow, so we're living in a giant symbolic landscape designed to shape our thoughts and behavior.
That's the question we're left to ponder. Are we truly making conscious choices, or are our beliefs and actions subtly influenced by the symbols all around us?
That's a question that makes you want to dive deeper, right? Where do we go from here?
Let's start by looking closer at some specific examples of symbols and how they might be used to manipulate our perceptions and emotions.
Okay, let's get into some specifics. This video has me questioning everything I see now. What's next on our deep dive into symbols? Okay, so we're starting to see how symbols can be used to, shape our perceptions and even influence our behavior. But this video goes even further.
Oh, yeah?
It claims that symbols can actually, control reality. I mean, that seems like a pretty big leap, even if we're buying into this whole subconscious influence thing.
It is a bold claim. And while I wouldn't necessarily say that symbols can control reality in a literal sense, they can certainly shape our understanding of it.
Okay, so how does that work? Can you give us an example?
Sure, think about the pyramid.
Okay.
It's not just a geometric shape. It's a powerful symbol of hierarchy, right? With power concentrated at the top.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
And we see this symbol used everywhere, from ancient Egyptian tombs to the dollar bill to modern corporate org charts.
So are you saying that by repeatedly encountering this symbol, we're being conditioned to accept these hierarchical structures as natural and inevitable?
It's a possibility worth considering, right? Symbols work on a subconscious level, tapping into those deep-seated emotions and beliefs. By surrounding ourselves with certain symbols, we may be subtly reinforcing those beliefs, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
It's kind of disturbing when you think about it.
It can be.
I'm starting to see symbols everywhere now, and I'm wondering what messages they're sending.
You and me both.
The video also talks about the psychological power of symbols, how they impact our limbic system, the part of the brain that governs emotions and instincts. Is that why symbols can be so manipulative?
Absolutely. Symbols can bypass our rational mind and go straight for the gut. Think about how you react to a national anthem or a religious icon.
Right.
It's an immediate, visceral response that often transcends logical explanation.
It's true. I get chills every time I hear our national anthem played. I never really stop to think about why.
It's powerful stuff.
But isn't it possible that some people are more susceptible to this kind of symbolic manipulation than others?
That's a great question, and I think it speaks to the complexity of how symbols interact with individual psychology and cultural conditioning, right? There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Every brain is different.
The video keeps coming back to this idea of a secret elite using symbols to control the masses. Is there any evidence to support these kinds of conspiracy theories?
Well, while I'm hesitant to endorse any specific conspiracy theory, I do think it's important to be aware of the potential for symbols to be used for manipulation and control. We can't just dismiss these concerns outright.
So it's not about rejecting all symbols, but rather about being discerning, right? Understanding how they're being used and making conscious choices about the symbols we allow to influence our lives.
Exactly. It's about developing what we might call symbolic literacy. Being able to decode the language of symbols, understand their intended and unintended effects, and make informed decisions about how we interact with them.
Okay, I like that symbolic literacy. I'm going to start using that.
Spread the word.
But if symbols can be used for manipulation, can they also be used for positive change? The video touches on this idea using symbols for personal growth and transformation, but it doesn't really go into much detail.
This is where things get really exciting. While symbols can be used to control and manipulate, they can also be incredibly powerful tools for self discovery, healing, and spiritual growth.
Okay, I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, many spiritual traditions use symbols for meditation and contemplation. Take the mandala, for example.
Oh, yeah, mandalas are beautiful.
They are. It's a complex geometric design that often represents the universe and our place within it. Creating or contemplating a mandala can be a powerful way to focus the mind, connect with our inner wisdom, and cultivate a sense of peace and harmony.
So, in that context, the symbol becomes a tool for introspection and connection with something larger than ourselves.
Precisely. And the meaning we ascribe to that symbol becomes deeply personal and empowering. It's no longer about external forces trying to control us, but about us consciously choosing symbols that resonate with our own values and aspirations.
That's a really beautiful way to think about it.
It is.
It's like we're reclaiming the power of symbols for ourselves. The video mentions other symbols used for positive transformation, like the symbol. Can you tell us a little about that one?
Sure. The symbol represents the primordial sound of creation, the vibration that underlies all existence. In many Eastern spiritual traditions, chanting or meditating on the symbol is believed to help us connect with our true nature and experience a sense of unity with the divine.
It seems like these symbols are all about like transcending the limitations of the ego and connecting with something larger than ourselves.
That's a great way to put it.
It's fascinating how something as simple as a sound or a visual image can have such a profound effect on our consciousness.
It really is. It speaks to the power of symbols to tap into something deep within us, something that transcends language and rational thought.
But this also raises another question. How can we distinguish between like genuine symbols of spiritual significance and symbols that are just being used as marketing ploys or tools of manipulation?
That's a crucial question, and it requires us to be discerning consumers of symbols, right? We need to ask ourselves, what is the source of this symbol? What are its historical and cultural roots? What are the intentions behind its use?
So it's not just about the symbol itself, but also about the context in which it's being used and the intentions of those who are using it.
Exactly.
We need to look beyond the surface and really examine the messages being conveyed.
Absolutely. And that critical thinking is what allows us to reclaim the power of symbols for ourselves. It's about being conscious consumers of symbols rather than passive recipients of whatever messages are being thrown at us.
This video has me thinking about all the symbols we encounter in our daily lives, in advertising on social media, in our physical environments. It's almost overwhelming.
It can be. But remember, awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
Once we start to see the symbols, we can begin to understand their influence and make more conscious choices about the symbols we allow into our lives.
So it's not about becoming paranoid or rejecting all symbols outright, but rather about developing a more nuanced understanding of how they work and how they can be used for both good and bad.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming the power of symbols for ourselves, using them consciously for personal growth, positive change, and the creation of a more meaningful and authentic life.
This deep dive is really opening my eyes to a whole new way of seeing the world. I feel like we're scratching the surface here. Where do we go from here? So we've talked about how symbols can be used for bad and for good, to manipulate, to control, but also for like personal growth and, positive change.
Yeah.
But where does that leave us? Like, how do we actually reclaim the power of symbols for ourselves? I mean, it's not like we can just go around changing all the symbols in the world,
Of
right?
course not. But we can change how we interact with them. It all starts with becoming more aware of the symbols that we encounter in our daily lives and understanding the messages they're sending, whether consciously or subconsciously.
Okay, awareness is key. But then what? How do we move beyond just noticing the symbols to actually using them to empower ourselves?
Well, think of it like this.
Yeah.
We are constantly bombarded with symbols, right?
Yeah.
But we also have the power to choose the symbols that we surround ourselves with.
So it's like curating a symbolic environment that reflects our own values and aspirations.
Exactly. It's about creating a personal symbolic landscape that supports our growth and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you value peace and harmony, you might choose to display symbols like the peace sign or the yin-yang symbol in your home.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like creating a visual reminder of the qualities we want to cultivate in our lives. But what about the symbols we can't control? Like the symbols we encounter in advertising or, on social media.
Well, that's where critical thinking comes in, right? We need to be able to deconstruct those symbols, understand the intentions behind them, and decide whether we want to buy into the messages they're sending.
So it's not about rejecting all advertising or social media, but about being more discerning about the messages we allow to influence us.
Right. It's about recognizing that every symbol has a story behind it, a history, a set of intentions.
Mm.
And once we start to understand that we can begin to reclaim the power of symbols for ourselves.
It's like taking back control.
Exactly. And we can choose to align ourselves with symbols that resonate with our values, that inspire us, that support our growth.
This whole conversation has been a real eye-opener for me. I never realized how much power symbols have to shape our perceptions and influence our lives.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
But it's also empowering to know that we're not just passive recipients of these messages. We have the power to choose the symbols that shape our reality.
We absolutely do.
This video, we've been discussing how the secret elite controls reality using symbols. It definitely plays on our fears about, manipulation and control.
It does.
But I think the real takeaway here is that we don't have to be victims of symbolic manipulation. We can reclaim the power of symbols for ourselves and use them to create a more meaningful and authentic life.
That's a powerful message. And it's a message that's relevant to everyone, regardless of their beliefs or background. I mean, symbols are a universal language, and we all have the ability to become fluent in that language and use it to our advantage.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways. First, be aware of the symbols you encounter in your daily life. Pay attention to how they make you feel, what messages they're sending, and whether those messages align with your values.
And second, don't be afraid to choose the symbols that resonate with you, that inspire you, that support your growth. Create a personal, symbolic landscape that reflects your own unique vision and aspirations.
This has been a fascinating exploration of the power of symbols. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
There's always more to explore.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of the hidden language of symbols. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about the symbolic landscape around us, the more empowered we become to create a reality that reflects our highest values and aspirations.
And who knows?
Maybe you'll start seeing symbols everywhere now.
You just might.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on our next Deep Dive.